Let's talk about step 8.5 for recovery. What is going on, you guys? Tyler, the older brother, wandering therapist here today. I am actually alone. Brandon and I have been alternating some schedules lately. Um, he is now gone visiting a cousin and on a trip with my other brother, I think participating in a golf tournament. And I think I was invited, but I wasn't really invited to be on the golf tournament part of it because they've all seen me golf before and they didn't want me as part of that final link on their team because they actually wanted the chance of being successful. So I hope Brandon's having a really good time today. And I'm so grateful that he was willing to cover me last week. So I'm here to return the favor and hopefully we'll get something productive done here and something valuable here for you today. Um, a couple of things that I just wanted to mention. I didn't get to, I think Brandon did on the last episodes that he recorded, but I didn't get a chance to just express really my heartfelt gratitude and love for all of the men that I got to meet at the Rising Sun retreat just a couple of weeks ago. Um, through the whole experience, I was just completely filled with love and gratitude and waves of emotion of just like pure love and energy. And I wanted to thank every single man who came and brought his heart, brought his soul, brought his energy, and who really fully threw himself into that experience because the collective energy of the whole group was phenomenal for me. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world that I get to be in the realm of working with men like each and every single one of you. I get to be a witness of you as you take on your life's challenges, as you face the demons that are in your own personal caves, as you struggle against your own personal weaknesses. And I get to feel of your willingness and your energy to never quit, to continue to cultivate a heart that is good, and to shine your light in the world in ways that I see you guys shining your light in the world. So, um, thank you. Thank you to every single one of you for who you are and for what you brought me, the gift of getting to know you a little bit a couple of weeks ago. Another quick announcement. I think we have a little ad running right now about it, but it's coming up very quickly. It's just in the next few days. We are doing a Foundations of Recovery class that is for either an individual or a couple. You can come together. It starts this Thursday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mountain Time. It's a 6-week course, and it's going to be really, really good. We do this in person. We used to do these in person when we were running our own private practices, and this is the first time that we've run one online. So you can have access to both Brandon and myself. We will be leading the course. It will be 2 hours, one night a week for 6 weeks, and it's going to cover everything. We're going to talk about restoring trust in relationships. We're going to talk about the effects of betrayal. We're going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about forgiveness. We're going to talk a lot about emotional regulation and then all of the healthy tools, really not tools, but also principles of what a wholehearted recovery looks like. And we would love to see you there. So go to reclaimyourheart.org and you'll see a link there if you're interested in learning more about the foundations of recovery. Um, Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about with you guys. This has kind of come up just as a result of some things that I'm seeing in my own life. So some of this is personal, and it seems to be just swirling around me right now in the lives of so many of my clients. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about what sometimes is referred to as step 8.5 in the 12 steps. So those of you guys who are familiar with the 12 steps, or if you're not, the 12 steps is like the classic, sort of pattern of recovery. What I love about the 12 steps is if you really look at it from a principled kind of a place, um, it seems to be a living and breathing active way of continually living in kind of a state of repentance when it comes to cultivating the right heart of humility, willingness, and growth mindset. And And so there's all of these steps that you kind of work systematically until you get to step 12, and then steps 10, 11, and 12 are kind of the ongoing sort of maintenance and management of all of the other steps that you've already worked. But I wanted to talk a little bit today about steps 8 and 9 and what happens in between them that not many people often really think about when they're working their own steps, but it becomes a very pivotal part of the recovery process. So step 8, the first between step 8 and 9. So let's get step 8 and 9 out there really quickly. So step 8 is all about making a list, and I'll just read it. It says, I made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So when I'm working the 12 steps, when I get to that part, I am now starting to kind of take accountability. I'm starting to actually clean up a lot of the damage that I've done in my life as a result of whatever's gone on with my kind of compulsive behaviors or addictions and all of the things that have gone with it. And now I'm willing to take ownership for the things that I've done to hurt other people. And I'm willing to make amends, right? So I make a list of all the people in my life that I have potentially harmed. And I don't know how many of you guys have actually done this exercise. It's a great exercise, even if you're not actually working recovery from an addiction. Like, this is just a good exercise. You want to start to liberate yourself. You want to look for ways to free yourself from some of the burdens that you're carrying and might not even realize that you're carrying them. These two steps become vitally important. So I challenge you guys, number one, to take this challenge on in and of yourselves. If you're listening to this episode, it's kind of a hard one because you have to do some really deep introspection and thinking about yourself, your life, and your relationships. Um, and so I make basically a list of the people that I know that I have harmed in the past, and I put them top of mind. And then I become willing to make amends to them. And then step 9 is I made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Right. So sometimes you don't want the making of amends to be selfish for yourself, even when it is detrimental to the other person that you're trying to make amends to. So the amends needs to be for the other person, not to make a clear conscience for myself if it's going to be damaging to somebody else. But in essence, step 9 is then I now take action. So I've made a list of these people that I've harmed, and I've contemplated how I've harmed them, what I may have done. So this is the empathy part where I realize, you know what? My lying to my partner for the last 5 years has probably affected them in this way, right? I'm willing to take ownership for that. I recognize that that's the nature of what's happened with my behaviors. And when I can, I'm going to go and I'm going to make amends for that. So this is hard because sometimes, I mean, the truth is, for most of us, when we look at our relationships, there's at least some relationships by nature of being human. This is a human thing. And then it gets even like worse and more insidious if you add on things like addiction, and then all of the ways that we protect ourselves in addiction. But the truth is that every one of us has probably done something to somebody in our lifetime that we can't actually fix, right? It doesn't mean that we shouldn't want to. We have a heart that's willing, and when we can, we make amends. So easy, if I stole something from somebody, I need to go and replace the thing that I stole, right? It gets a little bit more difficult when there's all of these intangible things that my behaviors have done to hurt somebody else. If I've spent years gaslighting somebody and they've ended up feeling a lot of self-doubt, they've ended up feeling a lot of self-blame, they've ended up feeling like they're crazy, I'm not going to be able to go and fix those things per se, right? I can't necessarily make full amends for those things. And that leaves a gap sometimes. And that gap is a place where we get stuck. We get stuck in a place of not being able to forgive ourselves. And we often get stuck because the person who's been harmed is still looking for justice to be served, but there's really no way to have actual justice served in terms of evening the ledger, right? The best we can do is take accountability and offer empathy and then make amends where possible. So those are the two steps. Those two steps in and of themselves are the pathway to, they're on the pathway to liberation, self-liberation, and in the right cases to healing and reconciling relationships. The simple truth is that in relationships that I've damaged, there will be some relationships that I can and are worth saving and reconciling. And there will be other relationships that probably will not be saved, that will not be reconciled, and that might still be the best course of action moving forward. Either way, I want to bring myself to a place of peace. So I've done an episode about this before, but I have a personal one that I know I'm never going to be able to fix. This was done as a little boy, as a child, a teenage kid, where I was kind of a bully to another kid. And as I've gotten older and as I've recognized that what I had done probably had left some pretty significant marks on this kid, I've tried to find him and I haven't been able to find him. And that's something that I'm never going to be able to repair. That's something I'm never going to be able to fix. I would pray for the day when I could look him in the eyes and tell him that I'm sorry for what I've done and give him a hug and acknowledge all the things that probably have gone on as a result of the ways that I treated him. But to date, that is still an open-ended loop. And it's something that I have to live with every day, knowing that I can't fix it. I can't even say I'm sorry other than the way that I have. That's a hard burden to carry. And if I'm not careful, I need to be cultivating a heart that says, if I could, I would. And that's that's a willing heart, that's a humble heart, that's a broken heart. And that's part of what steps 8 and 9 are all about, is the brokenness of heart to the point of real accountability. That's what we're looking for. Now, inside these two steps, there's another one that gets talked about here in the book. It's in the white book. I'm going to read it to you. They call it step 8.5, but it's not about the other people. It's actually about the resentments that we hold on to in our own lives that we actually are on the hook to now learn to let go of. So, you think about this as the classic story, the Bible story. This is a story that's never really fully sat well with me because it didn't really feel just to me, but the story of the prodigal son. Right? We all have heard it before, but basically the two brothers both work in the same company for their father, and the one brother goes, and I don't even know if this is the truth or not, but I always frame it as the younger brother. Go figure on that one, because probably because I relate to being the older brother. So but anyway, the one brother comes to the dad and says, hey, I want to go out on my own. I would like to have what's, rightfully mine with my inheritance, and I want to take off. And then he goes and he takes off with all of this, basically his birthright. And he goes out into the world and he spends it all on what's called riotous living. And you guys can picture what that is, but basically it sounds self-serving, it sounds addictive. Um, the whole story just rings of addiction to me, in terms of the work that we do. So he goes out in the world, he blows everything that was his birthright, so much so that he finds himself living with the pigs. And he says to himself, even my father's servants live better than I do. Maybe I could return home and become a servant or something. But he finally hits rock bottom, right? He finally hits rock bottom and he starts to return home. And even while he was afar off, the father sees him, and what does he do? He runs to him, he falls on him, he kisses his neck, he tells everybody to come and celebrate the return of his son. And meanwhile, the other brother, who was the diligent one that stayed there all along, made the right choices, helped run the family business. He's feeling like this lack of sense of justice, right? And he's wondering like, why is my brother, who's been basically a tool bag, why is he getting all of the attention and all of the love right now when I've been the one who's done all the right things? This does not seem right. This does not seem just. And he ends up kind of forming inside of his own heart a canker, like a callus in his own soul, in his own way of being towards not only his brother, but towards his father and towards the whole situation. And later on in the story, the famous line in the Bible is, "In whom lies the greater sin?" In whom lies the greater sin? So now you've got this brother who went and took off, wasted a bunch of stuff, partied, had a great time until he didn't have a great time anymore, and addiction was killing him, supposedly. This is my interpretation right now. And then he comes home after being an idiot, and he gets all of the extra attention and the extra love. Meanwhile, I've been the good guy, and now there's no recognition, there's no justice. And in whom lies the greater sin? Now, you guys think about this in your own lives. This is a hard one to contemplate. Some of you who are listening are probably in pretty dark situations where you are sitting in the same spot as the good brother, right? You didn't do anything wrong. Somebody else, probably somebody you love, has gone and done something to blow your life up. They've caused you added struggle, added heartbreak, broken trust. They've hurt you in some way. They've manipulated you in some way in their own self-protection. They not only hurt you, but then they lied to you and then made you feel crazy. All of that is going on. And now you've got this wrestle inside yourself. And you're wanting things to work out. Let's say you're wanting things to work out even with this person that you're with. Maybe it's your own relationship. Maybe it's a child. You want things to work out, but you're stuck in this rock and a hard place because there's still a cry for justice. There's still a need for acknowledgement of the pain that you've experienced. There's a feeling of lack of fairness. This is something that's always been hard for me, even as a therapist. So often I see situations where somebody makes a terrible choice, and then as a result of that terrible choice, they feel a ton of shame, and so they double down on shame screen kinds of behaviors. They get controlling, manipulative, blaming. And then it feels like justice isn't served because then the person who's done all the damage seems to walk away with the least amount of scars. And that's never quite sat well with me. I don't think it sits well with anybody. But the truth is that the pathway forward is an individual pathway forward. And all of us, in some ways, we're prone to it. We have to guard our hearts really, really carefully because we are prone to needing or wanting in some way to be the victim to something or somebody. There's something that's intoxicating about it. It feels good to be justified in our feelings. Our anger can sometimes be protective and can feel good. The need to have somebody else need to pay, need to suffer can feel good. But the price that it costs us is the actual principle of the pathway to freedom, which is personal accountability. We, each and every one of us, is on the hook for our own freedom, our own power, our own redemption, our own love, our own vibrance of the way that we live our lives. And many of us are burdened and bogged down by the resentments that we hold towards other people. And that is step 8.5. So between making a list of the things I've done to harm people and making amends to those very people that I've harmed, I also need to take a minute if I'm being honest with my own heart, and I need to, excuse me, I need to engage in step 8.5, which is often we perceive that the ones we have wronged are themselves guilty of real or imagined wrongs against us. Nursing these resentments, we have never forgiven them. Think about this. Whether you're the one who's maybe listening to this podcast who's done the betraying, ask yourself this question. Are there slivers or big, massive moats and beams of resentment that you've had to attach yourself to in order to justify the behaviors you've done to hurt people? Have you made yourself a victim in some way without even knowing that you've done it? Have you had unmet needs and not asked for those needs to be met or addressed or seen or validated, and then had it go internally to say that nobody cares about you and that, my partner or my children or whatever else never pay attention to me? When in reality, you were the one who actually developed and grew and held on to those resentments. And what are they doing for you? So I challenge you guys, if you're listening, to think about this. Pick one. Pick any resentment that you currently have in your life. It could be a big one, could be a small one. It could be the person who this just happened on the way to work today. I was trying to make a right turn, and across the way there was a guy who I think was trying to like um make a left turn for him. So we're both trying to go the same way. I could tell he'd been sitting there for quite a while traffic was going by, and then I pulled up and I had the right of way to make the turn. And so I made the turn. And as I turned, the guy sitting in the driveway across the street from me was like giving me the double bird finger and yelling at me. And I don't think I did anything wrong. I think he was just having a rough day because he'd been stuck in that same parking lot for probably the last 3 minutes, and it didn't seem just to him that my right of way would allow me to go after like just a couple of seconds and then cause him to have to wait longer. If I would have noticed it, I probably would have changed it, but I didn't notice it until I was like making the turn and seeing the double bird finger and whatever choice words were coming out of his mouth, right? Um, he's harboring a resentment towards a total stranger for what end? To what end? What's going to be the fruit of that resentment if if that man continues to harbor it? Now, what are we doing in our own lives that are very similar? Ask yourself, when you look at the resentment that you're thinking of, why am I holding on to the resentment, and what fruits is it producing? There might be some good reasons, right? When we've been hurt and our feelings haven't been validated, when we've been mistreated and there is no justice, it sometimes feels like the only thing we have to cling to try to get that is to harbor those resentments. When we've been damaged by somebody who isn't sorry, who might even actually be like hitting the hornet's nest even more and maybe making it feel like it's our fault or making fun of us or trying to hurt us further. Harboring that resentment is the natural thing to do. And yet, what fruits does it produce? Justification, the need to be right. I was just reading this the other day, and maybe I'll share it with you here. This comes from Pema Chödrön, It's The Places That Scare You. It says, we take ourselves so seriously that we are so absurdly important in our own minds, it is a problem for us. We feel justified in being annoyed with everything. We feel justified in denigrating ourselves or in feeling that we are more clever than other people. Self-importance hurts us, limiting us to the narrow world of our likes and dislikes. We end up bored to death with ourselves and our world. We end up never satisfied. The world, the world revolves around each of us automatically, and it takes consciousness to recognize that the world actually revolves around something bigger, far bigger than us. Our resentments pull us into a self-centered world. Our resentments make our lives small. They make our lives painful. They make our lives closed. They put walls up around our heart and don't allow us to feel. They rob us of other experiences. They rob us of the ability to make and set healthy boundaries. And ultimately, what I think is the biggest tragedy about us holding on to resentments is the resentments themselves place a callus over our ability to shine love into the world, to live completely wholeheartedly, to accept that this world and that this life has its problems, it has its challenges, it has its struggles, it has its stupid people who make dumb decisions, which, by the way, when you look at it, is pretty much every one of us too from time to time. And it robs us of being able to simply just live life on its terms. It leaves us in the state of the older brother, in whom lies the greater sin. It's not about in whom, it's about what sin means. Sin is a disconnection from our higher power. Sin is a disconnect from the life that we were intended. Sin is without connection. That's what sin is. And if we're stuck comparing whose sin is greater, we, by nature of doing that comparison, are already disconnected from the lives that we were designed for. It's only through surrendering all of those things, through letting go. Here's the definition of forgiveness. This is a hard one. Forgiveness is never even about the other person. The true meaning of forgiveness is the deliberate decision to release resentment and anger towards someone who has harmed you. Forgiveness is a deliberate decision to release resentment and anger towards someone who has harmed you. Now, what are the fruits of that? What happens when you actually make the decision to release resentment and anger? It doesn't say forgiveness is the invitation to continue to be hurt over and over again by the same person. It doesn't say the need to let it go as soon as somebody is sorry. It doesn't say as soon as justice has been served according to your interpretations, then forgiveness is whole and complete. Forgiveness is an internal process. The deliberate decision to release resentment and anger towards someone who has harmed you, which is primarily an internal process for the forgiver's own peace. It's not the same as forgetting, excusing, or condoning the wrong, nor does it mean reconciling with the offender or trusting them again. Instead, it involves letting go of the desire for revenge to free yourself from the past hurt, which allows you to move forward with a deeper sense of peace. I imagine, I don't know if this is true. I know this is true for me, that if I think about this question, what do I want in my life? What do I really want in my life? I think the deepest feeling that I want most often would include something like peace, joy, freedom, power. You know what the fruits of? Fruits are of forgiveness are When it's whole and complete, peace, joy, freedom, power. You know how much power it takes to wholeheartedly forgive, to wholeheartedly let go? But the fruits are immense. They're beautiful. Now, how do we do it? That's the question, right? Step 8.5. Back to step 8.5 really quickly for just a minute or two longer. Somewhere between making the list and making the amends, there's an unwritten requirement that we forgive. And we discover we're as powerless over resentment as an unforgiving spirit as we ever were over lust, sex, or dependency. So what do? We work the steps on this like everything else. We take the action of forgiving even when we don't feel forgiving. Most of us never seem to feel forgiving until we take that inner action of giving up our right to resent. Giving up the right to resent. Practicing forgiveness in our hearts as we think of these people, then aloud, perhaps even with our sponsor, we forgive every person on our list and keep forgiving them every time the resentment returns. We may find it necessary to forgive and pray for them each time we think about them until we are free of the resentment. The willingness and the gift of love do come if we persist. Surrendering our resentments, we ask for a willingness to forgive all persons guilty of real or imagined wrongs against us and forgave each one. I've got plenty of these in my own life, you guys. You guys know what it's like to wrestle, to have that like jaw clench up and that pit in the stomach. I imagine somebody could probably mention just one or two names of people in my own life. Like my brothers do this to me on purpose. Here's an example of this. Uh, my high school basketball coach was a man who I don't think lived the same kinds of principles that I've currently learned to want to live. And he was pretty his coaching style was not one of love. It was one more of coercion and fear and criticism. And there were a lot of there's a lot of pain that I carried with me after high school as a result of the things that happened in high school playing under this coach. Um, Years and years later, this is decades now later, I just found out that this coach passed away just recently of old age. And my brothers, thinking it was funny, sent me like his obituary and were like, hey, condolences, Tyler. We know this is a really, really rough day for you. We know you've got to just be totally torn up about it. And this is the part that I don't like to admit, but the very first response inside my soul when I found this news out was a tightening of my chest, a pit in my stomach. I could feel the muscles in my face all clench up, and the thought in my head was, why didn't it happen sooner? What? I just had thoughts wishing ill upon another human being because of the pain that I'm still carrying from decades ago. Most days it doesn't bother me. I don't think about it until my brothers throw out this thing joking around, like, oh yeah, you're gonna be really sad that this coach died. Like, here's the news, Tyler. Let me know what else you need. You need me to send you some flowers or something, right? Because they know how I felt over the years about this coach. According to the steps, I need to cultivate a willing heart and vocalize again for the 1000th time that I forgive those things. Now, in my case, it's pretty easy because I've done wrong a lot worse than I've been done to. I am so desperately in need of so many people's forgiveness that there really is no reason for me to harbor any resentment towards anybody else. If I really believed in justice, I would willingly, freely give away all of my resentments, and I would still have a debt to pay to even the ledger. But if not, it would still be on me for my sake, for the life that God designed me to live, to vocalize that forgiveness and let it go. And to do that over and over again until the heart lines up with the mind and it is full and complete. So if you're listening to this, I know that you're probably struggling with your own resentments. Those resentments matter. Your story matters. The ways that your life has been affected matters. And I'm sorry for the pain that you've experienced. And the blessing that you have is that your pathway to freedom lies 100% with you. You can be free today. You don't have to carry it any longer. And the power lies 100% with you. So hopefully this is helpful, you guys. Thank you for being here with me today. And if this is valuable in any way, or if you know somebody who it could be valuable for, please share it. And I, again, am so grateful for the people that I get to interact with every single day because of this podcast and because of my line of work. To see so many people in the trenches of their own lives, in their own arenas, giving their very best efforts is my favorite thing in the whole world. And I'm grateful to be in those trenches with you. And you guys have a great day. Until next time, keep on keeping on.